Hi everyone, welcome back to Isola.design, to the third appointment with the students of MA by Design from Central St. Martin. Today we are going to talk about shaping perspective from microscopic to microscopic words. And so welcome our guests, Giulia, Kit, and Eleonora. Hi everyone.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good,
thank you so much for being with us today. I'm very happy to do this talk with you because I'm very curious about your work and your master in general. It's very, very interesting. So to start the conversation, I would like for you to introduce yourself and introduce your work because we know that you've just graduated from your master. So if you want to talk about yourself and the project that you created for the graduation. So Kit, you can start.
Hello, hi. Yes, I'm Kit on Darty Rolls. And for my final project, I did a project called Octopussy, which was exploring kind of the manifestation of meat in relation to culture. So I explored 3 different means of producing meat, so from fishing, aquaculture, and cellular culture, in order to reflect upon the consumer cultures that drive their realization. And I did this kind of through the lens of the octopus, which has like weird kind of fetishized social cultures. And that was intentional so that I could kind of play upon the strange kind of fetishization of the meat cultures, which is explored in a short documentary. But yes, I was doing it's called critical design. So what I produced was a cellular lingerie line. So lingerie made out of cell culture, cell cultured meat. Yes, but as a prop, not as a product for mass consumption, just to, as a prop to kind of instigate debate. Yes.
Yes. Yes, I think the point was that, and it was very great. Eleonora?
Yes, hello everyone, I'm Eleonora, and my background is in product design. And my final project for MA by Design was called Within the Surface, and it basically investigates ways to integrate the growth of lichens in urban environments. So basically, the context of the project was specifically urban environments, and I was exploring how to integrate living organisms in general that are generally overlooked and unwanted in these type of contexts, and ways to integrate them in a way that makes them more desirable and in which we can cohabit with them in the urban context. And specifically, I was focusing on lichens, which are usually really ignored and not noticed organisms by the general public. And so I wanted to specifically put the design focus of my project on this organism and exploring through experiments and an observation of my local context ways to grow them in patterns onto the architectural surfaces, specifically in the city of Milan.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. And Giulia?
Hi everyone, my name is Julia Jigstock. My background's also in design, mix of interior design and user experience design. And my project is called The Unseen Majority, and it focused on the importance of microbes and including them in the climate change conversation. So when I talk about microbes, it's like any organism that you can't really see with your bare eyes. So they're currently not included in any of the climate change estimation models, but their impact could potentially be huge. So I try to combine a couple of different disciplines in order to create a communication piece for a wider audience. I use time-lapse photography, typography, and actually worked with the organism, grew an alphabet, and used the time-lapse photography to explore that alphabet digitally and putting it into like actual living posters that lead people into a digital platform experience where they can learn all about how microbes are affecting climate change and vice versa all over the world.
Okay, great. All of your projects are very fascinating, and I really want to say congratulations to you all because they're very great and they're very interesting to know about like what the work that is behind your project. So even though you already said something about it, I wanted to ask you what you would like to communicate with your project and why you choose this kind of project for your graduation. Kit.
So throughout kind of the whole 2 years, I was always trying to push the idea that kind of solving the climate and ecological crises doesn't have to be through product design, because I think we are often pushed into that way of thinking that, you know, it's like buy with your money, like in order to solve these things. And so I really wanted to try a different form of design, which is critical design, in order to open up these debates rather than saying, yeah, buy this and you'll save the planet. So that was really my way in to design. Yeah. Especially also as a biodesign, like it's a growing field, like it's new at the moment. And I think a lot of the designers, maybe you two will say, no, this is not the case, but a lot of designs at the moment be like, yes, you have to buy this product, la la la. And yeah, so I just wanted to be like, no, biodesign can be so much more than just that.
Yeah, it's very innovative, your master and what you're studying. So I think you have to create new ways for design. I think it's something that if you want to study this kind of field, it's because you want to create something different and something new and a new perspective of design. And so yeah, I think it's perfectly fit with all like the field in general. Yes. And Eleonora, what about you?
Yeah, so I think that the main points that I want to communicate through my project, which is as well a bit of what I myself learned while developing it, is, well, first of all, the importance of observation of the local context that is closely around us, even in its smallest and tiny details when looking for design opportunities, and not necessarily looking at what is most obvious or the biggest things, but in the small details, like it can be a lichen, for example, and something that people don't pay attention to. Aesthetically, it can look a bit, a bit alien, a bit like people don't know what it is. But then with like closely observing and being patient and trying to understand across different scales as well, because this is also a really important aspect of my project. So closely observing the reality around us to find design opportunities. For integrating also those that are the organisms that might seem kind of intruders in our built environment, but that actually play an essential role within the ecosystem, even in the urban context. So I think this is the key message, and as well, the importance of kind of tuning in with the rhythm of that organism. So, for example, the lichen that grows so slowly, so learning to be patient and like kind of going at their rhythm instead of always ours. So I think these are the main aspects that I would like to communicate through the project in general.
Yes, I feel like patience in general is not something that we're really used to in this generation. Everything is very fast. I don't know if you agree with me, but I think that's, like, as I was saying before, another way to see design and to see life. I really like, because you let yourself be influenced by your surrounding and what's around you, and you try to put like your background and your thoughts in your design work. So I think this is what really makes it different, and it's super innovative, and you just don't want to do things that other people are already done before. It's like a completely new path. So I think it's maybe can be difficult, it can be challenging, but I think at the end of the day, it's very worth it. So yeah, good work, girl. I don't really know how else to say that. I'm super proud of what you're doing right now. And Julia, what about you?
Yeah, so I think at a zoomed out level, my project was all about making the invisible visible. And in this project specifically, the focus was very much on microbes, but I think the concept itself is much larger than that, and it's one that's kind of very relevant within other topics today as well. So it's really about like facing complexity instead of oversimplifying. It's about encouraging curiosity instead of just kind of passively conveying information to people. Which is how we're currently being fed information a lot of the times. It's just you're the passive observer on the other side of the screen. So I really wanted to try and invite curiosity. And then lastly, it was very much about acknowledging what is unseen. So this idea that the work kind of happens behind the scenes. And I think this is kind of a cliche way to say it, but this idea of like, we just have to, look a little bit further, peek behind the curtain to see what really connects everything. It's not always obvious.
No, but you're right. Yeah. And what about the organism that you decide to work with? Why you decided to work with them? Kit?
Well, I love octopuses. I think anybody who knows me knows that.
Okay.
They're very strange, very peculiar creatures, but yeah, kind of as I did say in my introduction, like they do connect these fetishized cultures. They're kind of highly eroticized, kind of probably because they are so alien. Like in my project, I did a lot of ecology work. So I learned how to dive, and I spent a lot of time underwater with these octopuses and getting to. It was amazing in Galicia in Spain. And I say spent some time getting to know them, and they're like, they are kind of knowable. They're so like foreign to us, but their eyes are really similar to ours, and their behaviors, we can very much like project ourselves onto them. And now to go back to the question. Firstly, it's definitely the fact that they are heavily fetishized. Yes, I mean that would be the main answer. But it was then also the other reason is because they, as I was saying, like it is about the manifestation of meat. My project was, and so octopuses they've also, so there's the culture around the fishing, but then also with the aquaculture. And so like aquaculture is you can basically take creatures and breed them in the wild, or you can do it in a laboratory. And or like yes, it was in a lab, but it was basically on land. And it's with octopuses specifically, it's incredibly contentious because they're so intelligent. And so they are my way of bringing an ethics into the debate, and because it plays on like the social ethics of like kind of objectifying these really intelligent creatures, but then also keeping them in a lab. So those reasons maybe.
Yeah, you got to discover a new word. Yeah. Great. And Eleonora, what about you?
Yeah, so I chose the lichens. I think in the beginning it was just because, it was during I was working on this project during lockdown, and at some point I kind of started to naturally focus specifically on the very local context, and on my taking walks and trying to find inspirations. And I was really fascinated by the lichens because they are so like, among all of the different living organisms that populate the cities and that we focus on in the projects to make cities more green, people always think of like huge trees, and then no one thinks about the lichens. And I feel like I was fascinated by this fact that it's so in lichens there is a whole world. There's so many different species. There's a whole miniature ecosystem in them. But then they're just lichens. No one even knows, like many people don't even notice that they exist. And so I was fascinated by the idea of shining a spotlight on this organism specifically, almost as a metaphor of the unnoticed organisms that are everywhere but no one looks at. although they actually play a really important role in keeping the ecosystem in balance, and they provide food and shelter for multiple organisms that rely on them. And so their conservation is really important for habitat conservations for different organisms, and as well for cycles of CO2 and nitrogen. So they actually do have a really important role, but no one knows about it as much as with other organisms. And so I think that this is what triggered my fascinations for them. And then I started to read about them and observe them, and I found out about all of this small but big world. Yeah.
Yes, you wanted to give them a chance to be known to other people. That's great. And Julia, what about you?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Eleonora, you talking about the lichens always gets me so excited. I just wanted to highlight that she took this, I think it's a microscopic picture of a lichen, and it was so cool because you started to see all of the other little organisms that were living inside the lichen that you'd never see with your bare eye. And you really understand that it's this whole building community. It's super cool.
So exciting. Yes. Yes, I can imagine.
Yeah, and then for me, working with microbes is really interesting because you're working with organisms that aren't visible immediately. So I really had to do a ton of research and learn about microbes and what would be the perfect organism to work with for the message that I was trying to communicate. And I found, I don't even remember how I came across Bacillus subtilis, but I was immediately fascinated by this microbe because it actually, the bacteria is so small you can't see it, but it has this mechanism where they're actually able to communicate with each other. So they release these chemical signals and they work together altruistically to form these collective communities in order to ensure that they survive and they thrive. And when they work together, they're able to access food and oxygen more quickly than if they were on their own. So when they come together to create these communities, they actually become visible because there's just so many of them in the petri dishes that I was growing them in. There were billions of single-celled organisms, which is crazy to think about. But they actually form together to create these architectural structures. And that's sort of where my fascination with these organisms started. And I started with time-lapsing these petri dishes where I would place, just a few of these single-celled organisms, and under the microscope, under these time-lapse photographies, you could see how those organisms would come together, and all of a sudden these structures would become visible where there was nothing before. And yeah, it was just an extremely fascinating tiny organism.
Which I now have in my cupboard because I didn't want you to throw it away. I was like, they're beautiful. I was like, please. Get so many though.
Oh my God, yes, you must be very, very proud of the elements that are growing during your work.
I think all of us are getting kind of obsessed with what you do.
Yes,
you spend so
but
much
I can
time
actually only imagine it.
That's all you end up seeing around.
And we had to, do you remember just before we were presenting, we were we had to remind ourselves to zoom back out because we were so focused on the organism. And and it had to be okay, right, remember we're shifting perspectives. We need to kind of reshift our own perspectives. Yeah, that was quite.
Yeah, it's kind of like a little child, your own child that you're seeing growing. So you're really, you get really invested on everything that this organism does. Yes, but I think it's one of the best parts of doing the lab work, and it's actually related to my next question because I want to ask you how everything that you experiment in your life and in your surrounding, how this influences the outcome on the lab. So how is the difference between the work outside the laboratory and while you're actually working on the lab? Kit?
Well, for me, definitely the main thing is the context. Because I was working with octopuses in I guess it was 3 different contexts, because you have the fishing, well, as in when I was doing the ecological work kind of in the wild, they are in their natural habitat, they're in their normal context. And then the second context was in the agriculture facility, and so that's in a tank, and you still have everything that a real live whole octopus needs, and like multiple octopuses, but they are completely decontextualized from their actual normal surroundings. And then the third is in the lab, and that's like even more decontextualized, and they're kind of it's fragmented life. And so the work of Oren Katz in my work was really important, and he uses all of these terms like semi-living and decontextualized, and it was the transition from 1, 2 to 3 is all shown in my short documentary. But for me, I mean, in terms of biodesign, I think when we became biodesigners and started this course, it was like, this is amazing, like we have access to this lab, and it's promised so much, and that is amazing. You do have a lot of power kind of when you're in the lab, but actually definitely throughout all of our projects, because we did a lot of work from home, was the importance of like, actually hang on, like science and nature, everything is literally, you walk outside and it's all there. I mean, for me it was, you walk outside and you put on some scuba stuff and you go under the water. But really important to remind like myself and oneself that actually science doesn't have to be in the lab. So the ecological work hugely influenced the lab, but then vice versa. So
I completely get your point. Yes. That's great. And you can actually, I think you can see the difference when you are studying something like in their natural habit, and then you put them in another habit that is not theirs, like in the laboratory. I think there is a difference. I don't know, because it's not my field, but I guess it's changed a lot, the way you work and the way you see the things that you are studying. So And Eleonora, what about you?
Yeah, so definitely what I was going to say also really relates to what you just said, Kit, because especially for this project, because the experiments that I did, most of them I did while at home, and at home in Italy, not even here in London. And so this, because it was during lockdown, and I did a lot of back and forth between London and Milan. And so I was in my parents' flat, and so I had to somehow, organize my experiments in a way that they were doable even outside of a lab. And this has definitely really influenced the experiments, but also the whole project, I think, in a way that in the beginning it did feel a bit as a limitation, because as you were saying, Kit, we always feel like we need to go to the lab, and in order to make things happen, you need to be in this, in this different and sterile environment. But then having to do it from home, it put me in a different mindset and perspective, and made me think, okay, I need to work with something that is available around me, that I can do something with in a normal, like outside of a lab, basically. And so this, posed definitely some limitations, but then turned as well into opportunities to work with, to really like be forced, but also encouraged to work with what was immediately available in the close surroundings. And it was challenging as well, because it was really, because usually, we're used to work on this type of projects in a context in which everyone is working on this type of projects. While in that case, for example, I was with my family, and they were really, like, they were seeing me setting up the experiments, taking care of my lichens, and I think they were looking at me as if I was crazy, like, oh, what is she doing? She's suddenly obsessed with with the lichens, and like filling the whole house with small samples and like carrying things. And so it was also like challenging but interesting to be completely in a different context with people that had no idea of what I was doing, but still, having to carry on the experiments. And so it was definitely an interesting mix, but challenging but fun at the same time.
I think it gave another point of view for your work.
Okay,
thank you so much. And Julia?
Yeah, I would definitely second everything that Kit and Ellie just said. But I think what I would add is that I think especially at the beginning this was really apparent, but I think as designers we have this like very unique experience when we first step into a lab, because we immediately try to do things that are like completely impossible, and we pitch ideas that like don't really make any sense because we've pieced together information from like different disciplines and things that we found online. And while that probably drives a lot of people really mad, especially the scientists that we got to work with, I think it's a really kind of unique opportunity because you approach things without having limitations yet. And I think it really allows you to think quite differently, and it results in these like very unexpected projects in the end that you could have never really framed that way to begin with. So I think that to me was like one of like the most interesting experiences coming from, you know, practicing in real life and then stepping into a lab, having this like very kind of naive perspective.
And what's your best memory? Yeah, what's your best memory about the lab?
Oh, and the lab.
Yes.
There are so many.
Yeah.
Well, no, my favorite. I'm going to not reply to the lab because that was definitely from a different project and that was stupid. But no, my best memory is that the whole project wasn't in the lab. It was definitely it was still doing the science, but it was just underwater. And I went down with a group of like, I think there were probably 6 of us. And the guy who I was buddied with, he had a problem with his tank, so he had to go back up, and he was like, just wait here. I was like, fine, I'm going to look for an octopus because that's what I was doing. And literally right underneath me was an octopus. And honestly, I honestly thought I was like an octopus whisperer. And he was up there for 45 minutes. He couldn't fix whatever was wrong with his tank. And so I was down there for 45 minutes, he was like, stay still. So I was like, okay, well, you have to do what you're told. He's in charge of me. So I was there for 45 minutes, just me and this octopus, and I had the camera, and it was incredible. You know, we were playing like tug of war with my hand. It was, it was absolutely incredible. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah.
It was. And you don't have the same thing with cells in the lab. Maybe you can be like, oh, I know I'm going to take care of them. You know, I don't want them to die. But an octopus in the wild, you know, they can look after themselves. So you're just this like,
that's crazy. Yeah.
You're just watching them. It's amazing.
Thank you for sharing with us this story. It was incredible. And Eleonora, or Julia, do you have a favorite moment of the project in general or in the lab? Something that you remember while you were developing your final project?
I was thinking, so I don't know if it's the best, because it's difficult to choose just the best one, but the first moment that came to my mind related to the lab and to this project when you were asking the question was the moment in which I came back to, the first months of the project I was doing my experiments in Milan, and I was developing the project in Milan, and then I came back to London for the summer term. And we had just got this huge, amazing new microscope in the lab that everyone was so excited about, and I had heard about, but then I'd never tried it. And so then when I went back to London, I had already been working on the project for a long time and playing with lichens, growing lichens. And then the moment in which I went to the lab and finally could look for the first time under this microscope at the lichens, it was extremely exciting. And I remember, it's definitely one of the most exciting moments related to this project that I can think of, because after working for many months on this project, on the same organism, and being obsessed with it, but in Milan I only had a small portable microscope that was actually really couldn't get to a high magnification, and the images were really bad. And so looking under this amazing, super powerful microscope at the lichens and seeing like the smallest details of the organism and how it actually looks at that scale, it was just really, really exciting. I spent the whole day. I was planning to spend like 1 hour just, taking a couple of pictures and then going on with the work. And then I ended up spending the whole day just, there.
Yes, you could actually see the first result of your work.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And Julia?
Yeah, I've been thinking of like so many examples. I think the one I actually want to talk about wasn't in the lab. It was in my home lab.
Okay.
So as I was growing all of the different letters for the alphabet that I was putting together, I was running time lapses like 24 hours every single day. So I would I had to grow them in like a dark environment that like I couldn't even look into. So I never knew what the outcome was going to be. So I would set up the time lapse, with a petri dish that was completely empty. It was inoculated with a bacteria, but you couldn't see them yet. And then I would turn on the time lapse and I would adjust temperatures and change the environment, and I would go to sleep. And then like every morning for like 60 days straight, I would wake up and it was like the 24 days before Christmas, where like every morning you get up and you get to like open like a little door or get a little present. It's not exactly like that. It was like every morning I woke up and I'm like, I gotta go see what happened to the bacteria. And it's like I almost kind of missed that because I did it for so long that like once the project was wrapped up, I was like, oh, now I don't get to like go see what magic happened overnight. And it was truly like every single time, because the bacteria changes its behavior so quickly, it was always something different. And that was just, it was just such a cool learning experience and something like exciting to look forward to every single day.
Yeah, it really became like part of your daily routine. Like every time you had this thing to do. Yeah, so
yeah,
yes. That's super nice. And okay, so my last question for you is actually about your future, because as we were saying before, you just graduated. So this is like, I think, one of the most important questions that people will ask you. Where did you see yourself? Like now that you finish your master, and I can see your faces. I know what you're thinking about, but in which field do you see it as like biodesigners right now, Kit?
Well,
if you have an idea already.
So where I want to, okay, so firstly, biodesign is like bang in the middle of so many different fields. So I'm like, I don't need one field. I'll just be a biodesigner so I can integrate loads of different fields. But like,
great.
My background is environmental sociology and social anthropology.
Okay.
So that's kind of why my work has the kind of social cultural angle to it. But really, I want to juggle kind of outreach and reflecting upon society, but maybe through documentary film. I really, really loved doing that, but making sure that I stay underwater as much as possible, because but also in the lab, I want to do everything. For me right now that we're kind of winding down, I'm like, I'm going to stay underwater for as long as I possibly can. But then for sure, eventually, I'm like, I need to find a lab. I think because now all of us are like, right, where do I find another lab so I can juggle all of these disciplines? So I don't know. Is the answer. But I'm excited, and it's fine. It'll be fine.
Of course, yeah. And Leonara?
So I think, as well, I don't have super clear and defined ideas, but something that I would like to do is, because my background is in product design, and at the beginning and at first I thought, okay, my aim is to integrate, biodesign and product design and apply what I learned from biodesign to my product skills. But then in the end, actually, my final project ended up being a really not product design type of project, which was challenging in a way, because I really felt throughout the whole project that I was doing, I was taking a direction that was probably not what I'm strongest at. But at the same time, and so for a while, I asking myself, like, why am I not doing a product that maybe should be that's what I should be doing? But at the same time, it was really exciting to, just take this challenge, and because it was I throughout the whole project I was really passionate about it, and I wanted to develop it further. And so I just felt like I wanted to do it, but at the same time, I had this conflict in me. I was like, why am I not doing a product? So in the end, I was really happy to just do this project and challenge myself, and step out of my comfort zone of the product design and explore something else. But now I would like to try to go back a little bit more into the product field, but with the biodesign like knowledge and skills and and methods learned. Not necessarily meaning that I want to only do products, but definitely I'm missing that a little bit. So I would like the idea of
you would like to merge these
exactly
to maybe one
integrating those that are the main things.
Yeah, that's great. Yes. And Julia?
Yeah, so I think now I see myself kind of as a facilitator between disciplines. I think Kit kind of mentioned that already as well. But I think that like previously as a designer, I was collaborating with engineers and strategy and marketing. And I think like now it's exciting because it includes even many more people, biologists and chemists and climatologists. And I'm always thinking about how can I use my skills as a biodesigner to kind of facilitate sustainable action, not just like within design, but beyond that into all these different disciplines, right? Because the goal is to get everyone on board. So that's sort of the role that I see myself in.
Well, I really like all of your answer, and I want to thank you for being with us today. And it was super interesting to get to know a little bit better. And good luck for your future, for your work. And I actually really hope to see all of you in Milan in September. If there is a possibility, it would be really great to actually meet in person. And thank you again. And see you soon, I hope.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye, girls. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.